1, 2. I said microphone check. 1, 2. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me.
All right, guys, welcome back. This is your performance coaching call. I'm Dylan. We got Josh and Dusty here to join us to drop some serious knowledge for you to help you maximize your training. All right, the whole goal with all this is to become optimal, healthy, and to build some serious muscle mass and strength, ultimately to transform your life. Right? So how we're going to do that is to focus on the mechanics, focus on the things that you need to know, you need to do in order to be extremely successful with your training program. Today, we are going to talk about what you need to do as far as your warm-up and how to crush your warm-up, prime your body for movement, and ultimately hit PRs left and right. All right? So without further ado, guys, let's dive in here. Now, I know the biggest thing that I see every single day, just from observing in the gym, and even myself when I started training, I did not know how to warm up, right? A lot of people just go into the gym. They just think they can go in, they can hit the gym as soon as they walk in and start their first set, right? So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea, right?
Not a good idea. I think obviously in a ideal world where you're not pressed for time, obviously, yeah, you'd get through a full, like, kind of, as I like to use the RAM principle, raise, activate, mobilize, potentiate. You'd get through kind of a full warm-up sequence, and then you'd be able to go into your workout and hit it hard for an hour and 15 minutes. I know me personally, with my schedule, I don't always have the perfect amount of time to get in everything I want from a stretch and mobility standpoint. Oftentimes I have like an hour or 55 minutes. And so sometimes it has to be a little bit more condensed, and I will be the first one to admit, most of the time it's not very good. Thankfully I've built up enough we'll say tools in my toolbox over the years to kind of be able to realize, like, okay, when I got 50 minutes that I got to get in a leg workout, I know what I need to do. But I think ultimately it comes down to being prepared for what your workout is. If you're hitting legs, try your best to get as good of a warm-up in as you can, but you're going to want to stretch the glutes. You're going to want to stretch the hammies, the hips, and unfortunately, like, if that's all you have time for, well, that's what you got time for. But if you obviously have time to where you can go through a full, we'll say, active warm-up, dynamic mobility, and so on, yeah, that's going to be your best bet, stretching all the different kinds of joints and muscles in your lower body or upper body or whatever workout you're going to hit that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, you mentioned something, RAM. Right? The RAM principle. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of people really don't understand the difference in types of warm-up and what you should do, how you should do it. So I know a lot of people go in and think they should just stretch, right? Let's dive in on this RAM principle, because stretching, ultimately, it reduces strength. Right? So we want to make sure your warm-up is optimal. So you're optimizing your body for movement. You're priming yourself, just like you prime a pump before you use it. Just like you sharpen your pencil before you go to write essay or anything in that sense. You got to make sure you take these steps in order to properly prime yourself, to ready yourself for the workout, the strenuous workout ahead. So what is this RAM principle? Let's dive in on that.
Yeah, so RAMP basically is the four I like to call quarters of your warm-up. And the first part is just, R stands for raise. You're going to raise your body temperature, whether that's through walking on the treadmill, stair stepper, elliptical, rower, bike, however you want to do it, just raise your body temperature. Again, if you're pressed on time, the ramp portion, the raise your body temperature, is going to be pretty quick. Maybe it's only a minute, 2 minutes. The next is activate. You're going to want to activate the primary muscles that are going to be used during that workout. If we're talking legs, glutes, hamstrings, quads, calves, Doesn't have to be anything crazy or extensive, but just something to get the blood flowing to those muscles to get them warmed up. The next M is mobilize. So you're going to want to mobilize those joints. Again, since we're talking about a leg day in this example, the hips are going to be the big one. So any sort of internal, external rotation of the hips, getting those hip flexors nice and loosened up, ready to roll. Ankle mobility as well. If you know you have stiff ankles, or if you're an athlete and you've suffered a couple ankle sprains throughout the years, ankle mobility might be a little limiting factor for your squats. So you're going to want to make sure you take the time to mobilize those specific joints. And then finally, potentiate. Any sort of low extensive plyo, whether it's just light, low box jumps or body weight squats with a little jump at the top, anything to just kind of excite the nervous system, get your nervous system firing and ready to roll. And then once you've done those 4 quarters, as I say, now you can go into your, we'll say your warm-up sets of your squat, your deadlift, or whatever your primary big bang for your buck movement is for that session.
That's good. That's good. Now I know for activate, right? Let's dive in. Let's dive in a little bit more. Is there a specific zone, for example, raised body temperature? Is there a good heart rate zone that you feel would be justified for everyone, or is everybody different?
I take a very personalized approach. So every person is going to warm up differently. And what I mean by that is, Dylan, you played soccer, correct? For most of your life? Okay.
Yes,
so for you as a soccer player, it might not take you very long to warm up. I like to say you should be on the verge of sweating. If you're on the verge of sweating to a light sweat, you're probably good enough right there. Other people take longer. For most of us are former athletes, it doesn't take us very long to warm up. Once we start jogging, once you start doing something, it's not going to take very long. I'm not too familiar with like heart rate zones in terms of what's optimal for what type of training. So therefore, I like to keep it really simple and just go like, hey, once you feel like you're about to really start sweating, or you're like, crap, I'm hot. Okay. You've raised your body temperature adequately. And then from there, you can carry on with the rest of the dynamic warm up.
Perfect. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't have these Apple Watches or Fitbits in that sense. So for the people that do, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dusty, Josh, but I feel like a good heart rate zone would be anywhere from at least 120 to 150. You know, you're not pushing that heavy, that intense heart rate, but you're still getting enough. And usually for myself, I start to sweat when I'm around that or in that zone over 130 beats per minute. So that could be a good idea. But again, a great test, like Josh just said, if you start to notice sweat, perspiration, that's a great indication right there. If you start to heat up, you know you're on point with that. Awesome. Yep. Now for activating muscles, this for bodybuilding specific, I talk to my clients solely about this. This is such a key component because you really got to turn on your nervous system, right? You got to stimulate and activate the muscle that you're trying to train, especially when we're building muscle. That is so crucial. So good activation exercises, basically, if you want to simplify this, guys, put your muscle, the one you're training, in the shortest position possible for a good amount of time. You know, no more than 30 seconds, really, before you start to feel that nervous system turn on. Some people can do it in 5 to 6 seconds, and they'll start to feel that cramping, that nervous system turning on. A good example would be, for example, if you do biceps, right? I like to put the muscle in the shortest position, and the shortest position for biceps isn't right here. It's actually when it's raised over your head. Right here, your bicep is fully shortened. Now, if you flex and try to take your forearm and touch your humerus and just close this gap, over time, you start to contract more and more. You'll start to feel that muscle really cramping. When that cramp happens, that's how you know you're stimulated, your nervous system is turned on in that muscle. You're ready to go. Right? You can do that with any muscle group. All right, chest, you come into the front just like that, just like you were doing a fly. Basically putting the muscle in its shortest position and holding it there. That's a great way to prime your muscle and activate it. That's awesome. So for mobilizing joints, what are some good ways, any specifics to do that for different muscle groups? Let's say like for chest, let's say for back.
Say that again. Mobilize.
Yeah. Mobilize. Yes, sir.
I'd like to think in terms of chest, it's going to be shoulders. So maybe some internal, external rotations. If you got
Yes.
some iron scap, so any sort of posterior delt, rotator cuff work. If you have exercise bands, that's going to be a really good way. You're going to get a nice solid pump into those muscles. And again, maybe 1 or 2 sets. I like to keep it pretty simple, just 1 set, maybe IYTA, you go 10 reps of each of those, you're going to get a pretty good pump towards the end of that. And therefore, you're going to be able to feel those muscles turn on. You're going to feel them engage. In terms of back, again, I would probably say shoulders are going to be a big one. Traps, make sure you're not uptight with those traps in your upper neck. Yep.
Down.
And then any sort of, again, maybe some lower trap work. Dusty might be able to explain more on that, but like any sort of lower trap to keep your posture in the right position when you are doing, whether it's lat pull downs, rows, rear delt flies, anything like that is going to be good for mobilizing your back.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
specifics.
yeah, so he kind of hit on a few things that I was going to say too, but typically I like to go like above and below when I'm warming up. So like if you're doing chest, I like going above. He talked about shoulders. That's great. So you definitely want to hit shoulders, and then you want to go a little bit below too. So if you have time, I'd like to hit abs too. Even if I'm hitting chest, you want to stabilize the core also. So I like to go above and below my warm-ups. And then he talked about I's, Y's, and T's. That's perfect for chest. That's perfect for shoulders and back because you're hitting that scapula, you're hitting the upper trap, the lower trap. I's, Y's, T's, and A's are, I would include that in almost all of your upper body warm-ups.
Yeah, those are so good. So good, guys. We'll have to do a whole nother video on that specifically because there's a lot to talk about in that. But IYTs are great for it. And you don't even need to load them too. You can just do a body weight just with your arms. Just focus on controlling that movement. Ooh, it's a great primer. Absolutely. I love it. That's great, guys. All right, potentiate. Potentiate, Josh. Why don't you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so potentiate is just basically going to be about you want to potentiate your nervous system. You want your nervous system to be firing on all cylinders as best as possible. That way you're able to prime what you need to be doing for that. So I like, because I work with a ton of athletes, potentiate's going to be a lot of plyometric based, and it doesn't have to be crazy. I'm not saying you got to do like a 32-inch box jumps, but something just to excite the nervous system, force a rapid eccentric and concentric contraction within those muscles. For lower body, I mean, it can be as simple as just body weight jumps, squat jumps. It could be split squat tucks. With upper body, I love placing like a band across a rack with like catches, like those solid catches that come out if you're doing that, and then doing like purple band explosive push-ups, things like that, just to force the body to have to quickly react, whether it's an eccentric, a concentric, or an isometric. Any of those are going to be really good for potentiating the body's nervous system and giving those muscles like, hey, this is going to be what we have to do. This is going to be the way we're going to have to fire. Be prepared for this type of movement. And so once you do those 4 things, the nice part is each part of the ramp principle leads into the next. So raising your body temperature allows for the muscles to become more easily activated when you get more blood flow to those muscles. When you get more blood flow to those muscles, we all know motion is lotion. So your mobility is going to increase within those joints. And then you combine those 3 principles, you now have a recipe for the muscles that are going to be called upon during your workout to function in the most explosive manner possible, meaning plyometrics.
That's good. That's great. That's a good word. Cool,
Yeah,
guys.
so to
Yeah.
well, just to add to that really quick too, like I think it's a good idea to keep it in that order too, because
Yeah.
once you raise your body temperature and the muscles are warmer, you're able to stretch them more. So if you come in cold and you're stretching and you're not hitting, your full flexibility range. So if you
Mm,
warm up first, you're able to stretch further and you'll become more flexible in that range.
that's good. Yeah. So very important, guys. So very important. So that's a great principle for newbies, intermediate, advanced guys. Everybody can do this. Everybody can run through the ramp warm up and really start to maximize their workout, start to become more efficient. I know for myself, man, there would be times where I'm in the gym for like 3 hours and I just feel like I never really got a good pump. The reason was because I did not warm up properly. You can literally maximize your time. You can seriously really condense a workout into a solid hour where it should be anyway. You shouldn't be training for over 2 hours, 3 hours. Learn the lesson from me is not do anything well, especially if you're not eating properly. That's a whole nother story. So making sure you utilize your time before you start training to warm up properly is going to solve so many problems for you guys. It's going to be so beneficial, so beneficial. So making sure you implement this in your own way by following the principles that we lay out for you here is definitely going to be so key, because really you got to find what works for you, find what really activates, stimulates, and gets your body primed. Right? That's great, guys. So moving forward here, guys, let's talk about each specific muscle group. Let's give some good examples, good workouts, good warm-ups for each specific muscle group. I know we talked about shoulders, and really for chest, for back, for arms, shoulders, really all upper body, and even some legs as well when you're doing squats, just to make sure your spine remains neutral and you have a stable core. Shoulders really are where you want to focus on. But what other good stuff, what other exercises would you say are good for warm-ups? Let's start with upper body, arms and shoulders. What are some good ones?
Um, Something to also, I mean, it's very individualized too, because everyone could be different, in, like the areas that they need. But what I've seen a lot is that people's lats are very tight,
Mm,
and then that limits them in a lot of their motions. So like when they're doing shoulder press or something, they may not be able to go as far because their lats are super tight. So stretching out the lats, I think, is a good way to get more range. You might be able to also talk about like elbow mobility, because I know when people are even doing like front squats, they might not have the elbow mobility to like get into that position. So it's kind of
yeah,
individualized on the person too.
cool. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think lats, we'd kind of already hinted at it before. But rotator cuff, making sure that scap is nice and warmed up, moving properly around the rib cage. Those are going to be I think the lats and any sort of posterior shoulder, rotator cuff. Those are going to be the biggest ones when we're talking any sort of shoulder work or, if you're training chest too, like stretching out your lats, like Dusty said, it's going to play an impact as well. I mean, we all know big back is going to equal a big bench, whether it's barbell or dumbbell. So if you can get those lats better activated, better stretched out, your ability for them to contract when you're pulling that weight down towards your chest, that's going to secure the shoulder joint better. That's going to secure the shoulder blade better. And therefore you're going to have a much stronger, more secure punch when you do come out of the hole. When we're talking bench press, obviously rotator cuff is going to protect the shoulder joint too. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And Dusty alluded to that. If you're training chest, if you're training shoulders, you're going to want to warm up all parts of the back because that's going to be what sets the tone. If your back is tight, if your back is stiff, the muscles on the front aren't going to function as optimally as they should or could.
That's huge, guys. Huge. I know a lot of people neglect the back. They don't really train it as properly. And when they do, they're not even hitting their lats. They're hitting all upper body and their shoulders are just so tight up here. So learning to bring your shoulders down, bring them back to stimulate and activate your lats, that's so key, guys. So key. So take full advantage of this. You will see some serious progress fast with this, maybe even within the first couple weeks, but definitely at least in the first month, you're going to start to notice your numbers, your strength numbers going way up, and your muscle definition starting to improve as well. That's key, guys. That's great. Awesome. All right. So last thing here, guys, I feel like we should talk about this as well, because a lot of people don't focus on this. They neglect this as well. The cool down, the properly stretching after your workout. You know, instead of just finishing your last exercise, your last set, and then just putting your clothes on and leaving the gym, we want to make sure that you properly bring your body back down. All right. You bring your heart rate down. You allow your body to rest and recover. And also, we want to make sure that you are stretching out the muscles and allowing for your mobility to really stay enhanced. You know, the worst thing you could do is leave the gym, sit at home, and get really tight. All right. So there's a few things that will really make sure that you're optimizing your recovery. All right. And that is cooling down. So you guys got a good principle for cooling down? What do you think?
I would say I don't really have a principle per se in terms of a cool down, but part of it is I can speak from personal experience and I can speak from what I do with my clients, because what I do between the two is a little bit different. Oftentimes for me as a trainer, I don't have time to give my clients necessarily a proper cool down because I am running on the hour or 55 minutes. So it is a little bit tougher. But if you do have the allotted amount of time where you don't have to rush out of the gym, then I would say a good rule of thumb is to stretch a light stretch of the muscles that you just worked out. Nothing crazy, because we know when you work out, you're breaking down the muscles. You are tearing them. You are tearing the actin and the myosin and all those, the structural units of the muscle. You are breaking those down. So in a way, stretching them too much is going to have a hindrance to the amount of time that it takes for them to recover. But we do want to stretch them to a point where, yeah, let's say you finish your last set of lat pull downs and you're sucking wind. Take some time, take maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, nice light walk on the treadmill, get your heart rate to come down, and then go sit on a yoga mat and stretch your lats, stretch your rhomboids, stretch your chest. I like to do a full body cool down, meaning I'll stretch my shoulders, I'll stretch my lats, my chest, my back, my arms, my legs. Nothing crazy, maybe 15 to 20 seconds each, just something to kind of get the body into more of a parasympathetic state, meaning rest and digest, rather than we got to be amped up, we got to be ready to roll. And that's kind of my principle, I guess we'll say, when it comes to a cool down. I don't know of any actual science-based principles when it comes to a cool down.
Yeah, that's so solid. Dusty, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, he hit it right. What I was going to say.
Yeah.
Just going from that sympathetic to parasympathetic state. You know, when you're working out really hard, your body's, amped up. It's in that sympathetic, and then you want to bring it down. So it's already warm, and that's going to be the perfect time to stretch too.
Yeah.
So get a little bit more range after you're warmed up and your workout's done, but you're going to bring your body back down to that parasympathetic state, which is what you want.
Yep. Because that is, like Josh said, that's where you rest and digest, rest and recover. That is so key. Because a lot of times, most of us, we use pre-workout, right? I'm sure you do too. I know I do. I stimulate before my workout, which puts my body in a heightened state, right? So in order to bring it back down into this parasympathetic nervous system response, we need to make sure we're properly cooling down. A great way to do that, guys, is breath work. All right. I always preach to my clients, focus on your breath work. I know that sounds crazy because we don't really need to think about breathing, but when you do, you become mindful. You switch your body into this recovery state, which is the parasympathetic response, and you really can start to recover a lot better. Why is that so important? Well, if you're in this stimulated, heightened stress state and you go to eat, your body's not going to digest any of that food. That post-workout meal, I know a lot of times we hear this 26-minute window where your body is heightened, consuming protein is going to push it right into your muscle mass. But if you are not in a parasympathetic state, your body isn't going to digest and break down that food. You're just putting it in, causing more stress. So you need to make sure, guys, that you bring your body into a cool down and you allow your body to rest and recover and to get back to its normal homeostasis state in that parasympathetic nervous system state. That's so very crucial, guys. So do not neglect that, because you'll be able to recover a lot better. You'll be able to digest your food a lot better. You'll be able to start seeing a lot more growth and a lot more muscle gains right out of the gate when you start doing that. Drastic response, big time. That's good.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, that's good stuff, guys. All right. Anything you guys want to add?
No, I think we hit it all in terms of the warm up, the cool down. I think this is one of the more people try and make this part of the workout super, super complex, when I think we've kind of educated people here that if you can stick to that ramp principle, you're going to cover your bases. You don't have to be super nitty gritty specific. It's not like you have to do X, Y, or Z and you can't do A or B. It's like, no, raise. How do you raise your body temperature? Okay, there's a million different ways to do it. Whatever way works best for you, do it. And then make sure as you get into the activate and the mobilize, yes, that's a little bit more specific because you want to target specific things. But in general, don't make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, guys. There is a science to it. But at the end of the day, it's about what you can commit to and what you can continuously do. That is going to determine your success or failure. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this performance coaching call, where we give you the fundamentals to build muscle mass, build strength, and ultimately transform your physique tremendously, unrecognizably. All right. So thank you guys again, and we will see you next week. Hi guys, thank you for watching this video. I am so honored to be here, to be your guide, and to help you build the body of your dreams. If you found this video useful, if you liked it, share it with a friend, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, smash the bell so you can get notified when we create more muscle building content, so you can learn the keys and the fundamentals of success. Thank you guys again for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.